the hell do you find a substitute? We can use the understudy. The problem is nobody knows the understudy. Ah, but there's old Sally Soprano down here. Sally used to be a superstar. But Sally's kind of past her prime. But maybe she can have a comeback. She used to be a named product. Boy, if we could bring Sally back, we might attract a lot of people. On the other hand, we're taking a risk with it. It might be interesting. What else would you like? And she says, you know what? I want to know what they were paying the person before. I want to know what they're paying the understudy. I want to know what Sally used to be making. I want to know what's in the budget. All those facts for you. All right. That's the last you're going to see me on. Compliments of what is entrepreneurship? Define the word. Lenny Green is going where? First class, though. That means Pat's going to come down the floor also, right? All right. What else might you want to know, fact pattern-wise, if you were doing this negotiation on either team? If you were the agent representing Sally, or if you were the opera company, what information would you like to have?
If I was her agent, I would want to know how successful she was, so if she ever messed up, because if she has a clean record, then you can go in knowing that your history has been flawless.
Clean record, but she's getting old. Okay, maybe she's past her prime. Who knows? She hasn't had a lead now in about a year or so.
You want to know the payment details of what the original star was getting, so that you could effectively say, well, this person was getting, you know.
Very good point. So you want objective criteria. It's in the case. Very good. Next.
You'd want to know what she's been doing the last year, if she's been continuing to do music.
Very good. She's been trying to get a TV thing. She's been trying to get roles. But you know what? They say, I don't know, Sally, it's been a year since you've done this thing. We're not sure we want to bet on you. There's a lot of other stars around. So under normal circumstances, Sally has not gotten a job in a year. But she used to do this part. She was great in her day in this part. She knows this part. She can jump in with a week's notice and be able to do it.
Anybody else?
If you want to, I'll see if you're going to sleep.
Future projections. So if she comes in and it's a full house, how much are you making?
Good. Oh, that's a good. Hey, that's real good. Okay, so I've done some numbers for you, and it shows with a full house, you could pay her X dollars and still make a lot of money. Now, you may have to figure out, how am I going to get a full house?
Yeah.
But that's where your entrepreneurial out-of-the-box thinking comes in, right?
If she does well, does she get to keep the job permanently, or she ever?
Interesting. So I guess if you were negotiating for her, you might very well have some contingencies in there that say, if I do well, can you assure me blankety blank in the future? And we would call that out-of-the-box thinking, wouldn't we? Very well done.
What's the opera best alternative?
I'm sorry, one time.
What's the opera, like the opera house best alternative? Which soprano they can take? And how much?
I know we teach you to do it last. Write the executive summary, page and a half, 8 slides, take your choice. Then figure out what you want to do. Talk to lots of people about it. And then when you hone in on the exact executive summary, then you write your business plan. Because it'll answer all the operational questions you're going to have to think about. Don't get lazy on this. You'll make too many mistakes. But write the exec summary first. Much faster and forces you to think much more importantly about what your business really is. Is that too long, Len?
Yeah, mine is you write a piece of toilet paper.
And I totally disagree with Len. But we've had this disagreement for 15 years, so it's not going to change today.
Okay. Next.
Have you read, especially people who are international, who have family business to go back to, when they come to a place like Babson, you know, they teach entrepreneurship, they teach starting a new business, but when you were young, I want to ask you specifically, what did you think of starting a new business versus going into a family business if you had one?
So
How did you make that decision?
I grew up in a family business,
Okay, perfect.
all right, and Len and I have taught lots of family business stuff, so yes, I get it. In America, because I want to be really clear, I know there are total cultural differences here about family businesses. My father's advice when I came to school was, if you didn't like the family business, let's start something new together. Because his point of view was, I'm the next generation, and where we ought to spend our time was something I wanted to do. So that's what we planned. We were going to start a new business, we had it all organized, and it wasn't going to be the family business that we had. In lots of cultures, and I was talking to the Brazilians today about this, that won't work. Because that generation is much more about, this is the business, I want to pass it on to you, and they put the yoke around you. Okay? I didn't have that experience. Len, you didn't force your kids into the business, if I remember.
I certainly tried, but they wouldn't go. They said that the boss of that family business was a tyrant.
That was your wife, now I'm lost. But you did, in fact. Now, you had to have choices.
That's right.
But I can't answer that for lots of different cultures because it doesn't work. I totally understand it doesn't work. But for me, I had a dad who said, do your thing. And so that's what we were going to do.
Sir, do you think, what is the best way to constitute a board of directors in a family business? Like, who would you include in the board? How many people would you include in the board?
I must be honest with you, Len and I were hoping for this question. Okay? Because we think it's, both Len and I believe this is a really important question. How do you constitute a board of directors? Whether it's for a family business or not. So I'll answer first for the family business and then generalize, okay? For me, the family business board must include non-family members and people who are not operating in the company.
So no family members?
No, I didn't say that. Let me take it in piecemeal so it's very clear. My first rule is it should have outsiders to the family business. People who don't work for the company, don't work for the company. Second, it should have.
Julian, that includes the company's accountant or banker or lawyer because they are working.
Yeah, they work for the company. The lawyer, the bank, they all work for dad and mom. So that don't count. So that's point A. Point B is there has to be an education process for your dad or mom, whoever runs the business, about what the value is for a board. And that's the hard part. And everybody, your generation, not you guys because you're much smarter, but the younger generation tries to go home and tell their parents, you need a board of directors. Nobody's explained to them why and what the value is. So for me, that's the first process. And one of the ways, and Len and I think agree on this, is we try to get the family business heads to go on somebody else's board so they see what it's like. And as soon as they see that it's not threatening, they're much more open. Not in all cultures, but in a lot of cultures, they can say, okay, wait a second here, this is okay, I can do that. And if they want to put their friends on the board first, I'm okay with friends on the board, if they're business people.
Now, what's your advice on finding the right, a totally unbiased person that is gonna...
Let me interrupt you. I don't believe in totally unbiased people. When you're first creating a board, if Lenny was trying to create a board, I want people who like Len. Like his roommate at graduate school. Let's just pick John out, all right? John's a good person. He's totally biased, his roommate at graduate school. Perfect director. He knew who he was getting involved with. Totally loved him, to this day, actually. But he told him the truth. His truth, not necessarily Lenny's truth, but his truth. And Len could hear it because he was totally biased. So when you're beginning the transition from no board to a board, I'm okay with biased people, if they're smart. His roommate was, and is, incredibly smart. But he spoke back to you, didn't he, Len?
Told me I was full of shit a lot of times.
And I know that true because I watched. So bias is not the issue. It's whether you'll speak your mind with reason and is willing to speak up. Now as to what family members is he on the board? First of all, there's two things. Is it a board of directors for the company or is it a board of directors for the family? Different. Different. Here's how they're different. Your family might own this company, okay? You may want to have real specialists in this industry, but the family has its own issues. What does it do with the money it takes out of this business? How does it bring the next generation into the company? Those are family issues. And if you still want a family board, again, outsiders need to be there. You had a family board with John on the board, and John dealt a lot with your children directly, didn't
Because
he?
they listened more to him than they did to me. Sure.
So when his kids had questions, and I'm sorry, I can talk about his family because I know them. I've met them all, okay? So when his kids had questions, sometimes they called the outsider. So, how should your generation be on boards? Let me just answer that question. First of all, you don't belong on the board yet. Why?
You don't have experience.
What?
You don't have experience.
You don't have any experience. So my best advice is what I call sit on the wall. You know what a board table looks like, right? Everybody sits around the board. Well, at the back of the table's the wall. Sit on the wall, watch the meeting, and do one thing. Keep your mouth shut. And listen. And if that goes on for 2 years, it goes on. Until you have proven you have some functional expertise so you can contribute, you should sit on the wall and be quiet. Because if you don't, you will commit the absolute sin of all the younger generation, okay, which is not to prove their way onto stuff. It's slow, it's boring, you guys think you know more than your parents, and in many cases you do, frankly. Okay, but it doesn't work that way. You've got to prove your way. And so what you want to do is sit on the back wall for a couple of years, and somebody will say, well, we have a question for you. That's your opportunity. That's a point of view for me. Lenny, do you have a problem?
Yeah, and just in your case, okay, it may be a little faster than that because my generation, okay, doesn't understand social media and the computer and all the things that are happening as fast as you guys do. And if asked, that's where I think you can put your foot forward and come from the back wall forward, Connie. That's great advice. And again, I add one more thing. I don't care whether, in fact, for most of the time, everybody on my board, okay, knew nothing about my industry. And I don't care. They knew about business. They were smart. They were independent. They didn't need to be on the board. And that makes a decision. Okay. Want somebody else?
Okay, you said that there should be business people on the boards. Do you really feel they have to be business people? Can it not be people from different, like, whether it be a doctor or whatnot? Yes, they have not studied business, but isn't it like the mindset that matters if they can think?
Yes, I have a bias though, so I ought to tell you what it is. Most non-business people don't have the mindset for business questions. Doesn't mean they're not brilliant. They don't have the mindset for business. Now, if you're talking about a doctor being on the board of a medical equipment company, that's the main expert. I have no problem with that. It's when you go so far afield in the beginning that it's really hard to get their advice. But remember, for me, it has a lot to do with the owner-manager. Are they used to having a board or are they used not to having a board? If they're used to it, then you can have lots of different people that spread farther afield. But they're comfortable at that point. When you have that first 2 years of having a board, how many of you in family businesses? How many of you have boards? Do your parents have boards? Just only 10%, okay? So for the rest of that, You need to get that generation much more comfortable with the board, so you want it to be really helpful. If it's really helpful in those first 3 or 4 meetings, you can get to where you want to go. So it makes a difference where you are in that cycle. Does that answer your question?
You have to remember that many times the owner is used to making all the decisions. So you're breaking them into listening to other people. And you start putting people in who don't understand the business at all. They start throwing things out that are really crazy. The owner guy is going to invariably say, wait a second, it's a waste of my time.
Waste of my time. First thing they're going to say, guy or gal, mothers are just as bad as fathers on this issue.
So start with business people at least, because you're talking the same language.
By the way, there's one thing before you go on, Len. Boards of owner-manager business and in family businesses never vote. So the first thing you have to tell those people where you want to have a board for your family company or a regular company, nobody votes. That's a myth. The Wall Street, what I call the Wall Street Journal myth. There are no votes on boards. Owner-managers who own the company, they decide at the end of the day. It's an advisory board, no matter what you call it. And so and I only work on, basically private company boards, some public, but private company mostly. And for those that are worried about this issue of control, I give the resignation up front when I go on the board, undated. I give them the resignation. So whenever they want me off the board, I'm gone. So because I have to get over the issue that this isn't about votes, it's not about control. And so I just literally, here's my resignation. Use it anytime you want. So, sorry, I wanted to go back on that. You guys calling the next person?
So some of the advice I've been given to my family business is to stay as far away as possible up until, I guess, I'm done with college, etc. Just so that if I come in too early, I'm going to get blinders put on. This is how the industry works. This is how things work. This is how things have to be done. I wasn't sure about this, and I was wondering what you guys think. Is there any time that's too early to join a business? Is it?
And this guy is so imaginative, okay? I mean, he really thinks outside the box and everything else, and you're telling me that you don't want to use those ideas in your...
Well, no, you just don't want industry norms. It's easy to get trapped up into like this.
Okay, I think that's a really important point. It comes back to this question about how far afield you can go. It's a way of thinking. If you're going to allow yourself at any moment in your life, at this time or at Lenny's age, to start down industry norms is the first thing you think about, you shouldn't do any of this. You shouldn't do any of this. What we hope we've taught you here, and mostly you came in with this idea anyways, the first question is how do we solve the problem, not is how does the industry solve the problem. And we want you to learn, we hope you've learned through the cases that we've done and taught with you, that's the first question. What's the best way to solve it? Not, what does the industry do? It's not the right first question, because it happens. Just what you said. You start asking, could be in a startup, a venture capital company. Doesn't make any difference. If you say, well, how does software companies go to market? I don't care what the industry tells me. I'll learn about what the industry tells me, but I won't start. So, I don't care what your age is, to be honest.
I guess on a similar note, you said in your early career, you went into private or public companies who were really in bad shape to provide advice. So that's something where, they're obviously doing something wrong or something's changed that they're not caught up to. As far as the communication skills go, where do you even start if you come into a company and there's 1,000 things wrong and the leaders are completely against change, but you know that something needs to be done and they brought you in for your advice?
So it's important for you to understand how I got into those companies, because either the leader asked me in, or the venture capital investor fired the leader and brought me in as a substitute. So in the second case, it's pretty simple. You are the leader. Don't ask me how you get to be 25 and a leader. In our day, we just weren't worried about failure. I wasn't worried about being wrong. And I thought, and my partner thought, gee, if you go into trouble businesses, you're going to fail anyway, so don't worry about it. So the first thing I think you do in terms of communication, you've got to have confidence in yourself. Everything starts with the leader. If the leader is uncertain, the organization will fail most of the time. Now, that doesn't mean bravado. It just means we'll solve this problem. We'll make a decision together, or I'll make it. It'll be wrong or right, but we're going to start to move. It's like this situation here. We just saw a presentation. I've forgotten who did it. Okay, which was, gee, the booze wasn't available, so we kept going down the road. That's what the mindset has to be. We will solve the problem. We might fail along the way a few times, because failure doesn't mean anything. Just different cultures have a different point of view of this. But if there's one thing I'm going around the world trying to preach is, don't worry about failure. Absolutely, it's the best learning you can ever do. The number of failures we've had among the faculty of us entrepreneurs is incredibly high. You just don't hear about them. You only hear about the victims. Is that fair, Len?
Yeah, that's very true. The other thing, if I can just add in with shifting Jackson, okay? Think about the culture that we've developed in this class from day one, when you read the syllabus for the first time. When I sat with everybody today, we had 22 people coming today to sit, okay? And conversation, could you have made the syllabus smaller? And the answer is, yeah. I think a third of it is repetitive, that this is the best class that there is, this is the most challenging class that there is. You are a winner, okay? That's all we're interested in is winners, da, 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 da. That is a mindset that you've got to get into, okay? Because even when you fail, you win. If you look at it and analyze it and see what you did. And as Wes said, I think I learned more from the failures than I did from the successes. Although the girls had slapped me and I don't remember.
Well, I want to add something, Len, that's really important for your age group, okay? You cannot have false bravado. If you go in with confidence and you cross that line, and you can't back it up, it's hard to get going. So pick and choose your spots when you're going to go ahead. Just don't believe you're done. Just mean you're not quite ready yet. So don't cross the line. Bravado will kill you. People hate bragging 21-year-olds, 16-year-olds. You know who I mean. You can spot them in this class. Now, I don't know any of them, so I'm not talking about any of them. But that's going to be a failure, especially for those of you with that attitude. You go into family businesses. You wonder why Dad and Mom don't accept anything you have to say. It's because you challenge them all the time. You need to be an effective communicator to get people to buy your ideas. Just saying you're a recent graduate of Babson ain't going to cut it. So here's my advice. Get some functional expertise. I don't care what it is. Len said, gee, you guys know all about social media. Acquire the expertise. Make it work in the company. And then don't brag about it. People will get it. So functional expertise that you can build on is a way to get credibility. That's what you want. And then you add that with confidence in your underlying.
I have a software consulting business, and we do design and development for a lot of different companies. And I'm finding it's very common for smaller consulting companies in software want to branch out by building their own products and build their own cash flow. It's very tempting. Make a $15,000 iPhone app and you can make millions and millions of dollars. Is it a good idea to take free cash flow and invest in those kinds of things, or to focus more on the consulting side and the client development side?
So I don't know what Len's answer to this is, but I'll go first. First of all, you asked an extraordinarily important question. Let's just start with that. Because service companies of all sorts, consulting, digital marketing companies, advertising agencies, accounting firms, law firms, they're all service companies. companies, and everybody's trying to productize. Oh my God, that's where heaven is, we just productize something. But the thing that I would suggest is that you put money aside to cover the dips in cash flow first. Because in every service business, as it starts up, you'll go brilliantly for a while, you'll hire a bunch of people, and that month will come when the revenue didn't come in. It happens to all of us, right? It happens to every one of us. So the first thing money ought to go to is for the dip in working capital, because I can predict it. It's going to happen. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. The second thing I would build is getting the revenue stream with the consulting company to be more predictable. So who's bringing in the revenue for the consulting piece or the service part of the business? That's where I would invest. Third would be product. No matter how tempting it is, working capital first. You've got to keep the cash cow filled. Everybody figures out that if they own the cash cow, it'll happen forever. Len and I can tell you, it doesn't work that way. So first, working capital. Second, get the sales process working so the revenue comes in. Then third is productize. That's the order of events. Len, I don't know whether you...
So the other big thing is, let's say you're successful in the service end of it, and you suddenly land this big client. Oh man, I've got it made. Only problem is that big client will probably stretch you out 60, 90 days, if it's Walmart, 120 days. You need that backlash of cash flow, okay, hidden backlog somewhere to cover that kind of growth before you start investing in something you don't know anything about. Cover your own ass first. I guess I'm saying the same thing. Right, no possibly?
That's a less risky strategy, let's be honest. But it does allow the cash cow to be more certain, which then allows you many more choices down the road.
At what point should a startup really consider a board?
Before you start. Let me just be more brash about this. Are most of you seniors or all of you seniors? Every one of you ought to have a board of advisors today, whether you're going into business or not. That's how strongly I feel about advisors. Biased advisors. People who love you. I don't mean your mother and father. But people who really think you've got something to give. You ought to have boards today. Because there's so many choices you guys will make. Somebody asked, how do you balance offers and stuff? Those are the kinds of questions you want a board from. And the reason you want the board is you want to understand the kind of advice you get over time from him. So I want to know what kind of advice he gives me in 4 or 5 different areas. If I'm happy with it, great. He should be on my board of advisors. If I'm not comfortable with it, I should say the time has come to change. So, in answer to your question, today.
And Anthony, the other thing is that you're not going to ask the people that you start in business with the questions that we're going to ask. Because we're going to ask, hey, what happens if you get divorced? What happens if somebody died? What happens if somebody said, what happens if you leave the business and you have stock? Your friends are not going to ask those questions, but those questions have to be asked in the beginning. What ifs? That's why you need that kind of input.
And it's the typical, what I call the Babson style. 3 guys, 3 gals, guys and gals, and everybody owns a third. My favorite Babson story. Of course, it's Stanford's story, Berkeley's story, it's everybody's. Because students won't really deal with the fundamental issues.
Yeah, you hear
so we're going to ask you, I'm sorry, go ahead now.
You hear so much about Idea Paint or Jim Veria, all the great success stories, except that they all had partners who were not there. And they didn't have a setup as to how to do it, okay?
Exactly. Thank you. Finish the point. So today is the answer.
And you were
Sir, do you think that 1 year of experience in a company that is not your family's company is enough for external experience?
To go back to the family business?
Yes.
Well, the question asked before is how do you get to make sure that you're not having the standard industry answers? I would say the best family businesses I know, the kids, sorry, you're all kids to me. Even my 40-year-old students are kids to me. 2 or 3 year experiences at more than one company. 2, what I call 2 real work experiences. By the way, my answer is the same for people who say, when should I go get my MBA, if that's where I'm headed? Not until you've had 2 real business experiences, 2 different companies. Then you bring something to the education. 1 year someplace and you go back to the family business, doesn't do much for me.
I was wondering, how is money made as a board member? I know there's no pros and whatnot, you're throwing around, but the financial benefits, how does that work out?
Well, Lenny and I do agree on this one. Who said anything about being paid? Did you hear me say that? Is that right, Len? How many of the boards you're on do you get paid for? You may get all of them, I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. So let's talk about it, okay? Because there's lots of companies that can't afford me, and I like the people. That's my criteria. They're interesting. It's not interesting, it's over. So Ed Marum, he also teaches MBA. He's
he's still here.
What?
He's still here.
Oh, Ed's here, so you know Ed. We don't, you know, if it's, you got an interesting issue, we advise, we're fine. But, as Ed would tell you, at some point in time, if you've been successful, don't forget to pay. But it isn't about, for us. See, Lenny's much younger than we are, so he has a different perspective. And, no, that's true, so.
Just so happens I have 2 girlfriends and you don't, so they cost me some money.
That's another good point. So, but now let me answer the positive way. I've been a professional director my whole life, and it pays pretty damn well. You know, I charge a certain amount of money a month, whether meetings happen or don't. I don't, for family businesses, I don't take equity. I think that's, you're not gonna get them, you shouldn't take them. For venture capital backed companies, I get the standard equity package that's given to directors, plus the cash if it's standard. Because that's what venture capitalists are gonna do. Early stage investors don't get paid, and you do get a little pay, and it creeps up as the company goes to the A round, the B round, and the C round. So that's pretty standard stuff in the venture world. In the non-venture world, it's cash is a good way. One thing Lenny and I agree on, cash is a nice thing. Do we agree on that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, but, you know, you can just make it nice. Nobody here knows in America about professional directors, but in London, in Europe, for example, that's a professional over in Europe. Yes, oh, I'm sorry, you guys call it, John.
So you're talking about setting up a board, you know, today. I mean, I feel like this is something I've kind of been naturally doing since I was 12. I'm a professional magician, and I've been able to, like, I've been fortunate enough to meet and work with some of the best guys in the world. But, I mean, how do you make something official? A lot of these guys are mentors to me and you know, help me with the, you know, the business side and all that. I mean, what are you talking about, you know, getting something set up today? How do you make this the real deal, and how often are you meeting? And you know,
Great.
how do you set everything
So the
up?
first thing about the real deal is you get all your mentors in the same room. Other than that, you're just having individual conversations. The best thing about a board is if you have 3, 4, or 5 people who care about you and who come from different backgrounds, and they'll discuss the question in the same room. If you don't want to do that, then continue to have your individual conversations. But it's not as powerful as having everybody in the same room. Because the other benefit, in addition to pay, is I'm interested if I'm going to go on a board. Who else is on the board? I want interesting people. If it's not interesting people, Len and I totally agree on this one. Forget it. We have no time for uninteresting people. And your job is to make it really interesting for us. Because the more you make it interesting, you get more of our mindset. So that's point A, in the same room. Formality, that's what creates the formality. For me, in my view. I don't care about minutes and all that other garbage. It's not relevant. advising you or your company. So in the same room, consistency. Venture capital-backed companies, which have a high rate of change, tend to meet every 4 or 5 weeks. Family-owned businesses that have been in existence for a while tend to meet quarterly. Because it's the rate of change which causes the new issues to arise. So the faster the rate of change, the more frequent the meetings. Number 3 rule is an agenda. So let's go talk about agendas. If you have a board and you don't bother with an agenda, you're going to lose everybody's interest. If you don't put pre-thought into it, it's over. 4, let's talk more about how you develop an agenda. First of all, think 2 hours, maybe 3, max. You okay with that one?
Yes, sir. It has to be.
Number 1, first item on the agenda. Yes, you do some financial stuff. Financial stuff should never be longer than 30 minutes, because in which direction do financials look?
Backwards.
Backwards. A board is about looking forward. So don't get caught doing all this financial stuff. Send them out the financials ahead of time. Let them ask the questions ahead of time. What a board's about, first agenda after the financial stuff, is number 1. What issues are keeping you up? What are you thinking about? I don't care whether they're strategic or tactical or people or whatever they are. If you're thinking about them, that's what a board's about. First thing and foremost. So you think 2 hours, 2.5 hours, first 30 minutes is financials, if that's relevant. The next hour and a half, okay, is what's keeping you up. What do you think? I don't care what it is. Tactical, strategic, as I've said. Next, you ought to ask your board members, do they have something that you think, do they think you should be talking about? Pick one of their subjects to talk about. Because as Len said, there is stuff we guys are going to know about that you're just simply not going to know to ask. As I always like to think about, a board is really good at knowing what's over the next mountain, and you're still climbing the mountain. There's why our board is really helpful. And the last subject of a board, and I'm almost done, is if you have people working for you, key executives, over the course of a year, make sure they're in the room to talk about what they do to the board for 30 minutes over a 2.5-hour meeting. That way, over the year, they've met all the people who are giving you advice and are helping you. Then they can give you feedback about what they think about the advice you're getting. Don't take it, whatever, but then they're in a position to talk about it. Any problems with that agenda?
That's perfect. I add one more. I add a what-if scenario.
Okay.
They must focus on a what-if scenario. I don't care what if scenarios it is, and usually it's succession is the last one that they want to get to. But at least start with a what-if scenario. Is what if something happens, how are you going to handle it?
That's right.
My goal that before the end of the year, succession's got to be on the table.
And for me, I don't agree for family businesses, because there's no such thing in most families. Most family businesses in the beginning don't have succession issues. You have to get trust on the board first. Can't really raise succession.
You don't walk in and say, what happens if the head person gets hit by a bus?
I don't.
Really interesting. Okay.
No, we can, by the way, it's okay that we disagree. This won't be the only subjects we disagree on. But it's okay because people have different points of view. I believe in order to, before you start to ask the question, what happens if you get killed, is let's get you comfortable that you're getting value out of the board. Because if you feel you're getting value, your mind's open to the more difficult questions.
Okay, so you won't even start with part of every quarterly, it's got to be a what-if question, and after a year, then you say, we're going to put succession on.
Excuse me. In that order.
That's right.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were being serious about the first meeting.
No, we put a what-if in every meeting,
Yeah.
but by the end of the year, I want to at least have succession as well.
Yes, that's okay. But you really, it's all about, for me, getting confidence
Yes,
of
no
the
question
leader
about it.
about having an open conversation. And the board members know right away whether it's open and honest, because if you're not really telling us what's on your mind, we'll know it. And the board, you'll have lost your board members, or you'll be bored by having a board meeting, so that's good. Any other questions? These are good ones, by the way. They may not be relevant for everybody, but they're across the board, they're excellent.
What do you think about winning? We've learned in this class that we should always try to win. What's your vision of winning?
Do you think I'm going to take Lenny on the issue of how important winning is? I think winning's a good thing. Winning gives you choices. And I'm about my life, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want choices. And the one thing that I know about when you run your own business is you have the perception of choice and freedom. You don't really have freedom of choice, do you? But I want the perception of choice. I want to believe that I can teach here or not teach here. I can go someplace else. So for me, if you win frequently enough, you have choices in your life. And for me, that's about what life is, having choices. Only way I can get that is to be a consistent winner. That's just a fact. I don't know why the question, but that's my point of view. Len, is that any different? Is that okay with you as an answer? Or
Winning is everything.
what?
Winning is everything.
Yeah, it's not for me. I know Len believes that, but for me, in essence, it's everything, because for me, choice, having choices is what it's all about. But the only way you get choice is to win.
And again, just be serious for a second, okay? You have to define what winning is. Okay, winning isn't making the most money and killing everybody off and, you know, being an master about the whole thing, not being able to work with those people in the future, what have you. Winning is setting realistic goals, okay, long-term and short-term, and working toward those, and having a sense of accomplishment as you reach certain goals. Now, people like Les are very comfortable with who they are and what they do. Lenny Green is very insecure. He has to win. Okay? Keep on proving that he's something, It's just a mindset difference. Now, having only 49% of my company makes me feel that way because I feel insecure from the start, because Lois has got more of the company than me. Okay?
Do they know you're telling the truth or not?
Yeah, in fact, Lois was supposed to be up here today, and she was going to bring her 51% certificate.
So that's how I think about it. It gives me what I want, just choices.
What constitutes, what constitutes a founder in a startup? And by that I mean, is it the team that after the startup gets funding, those are the founders that started the venture, or is it prior to that, you know, just with the initial, you know, idea stage?
You're going to hate my answer to this question. I don't really care. It's a title. I don't do much with titles. I know that if you're at the kitchen table at the beginning, probably call it founder. But founder, titles don't mean anything. If you're asking where did the idea come from, and those are the founders, any definition you want is fine. But I really care about who's driving the engine. That's all I care about. Call them founder, call them CEO, those are just simply titles that don't mean anything. I don't know why we make such a big deal. I get questions all the time here at the accelerator. Well, who's a founder? I don't know. It's not relevant. Sorry.
Well, other than just being interesting, what do you guys look for in either partners or companies that you want to deal with? Is it trust? Is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Other than interesting?
Yeah, I mean, you spoke of how if you want to be on a board with somebody, they should be very interesting. Right? They should get your interest. Other than that, what are the factors that you'll look at?
I have to like the person. If I don't like him, absolutely what I've learned over time is every time you do business with somebody you don't like, you're going to fail. It's going to be aggravating. So for me, got to like them and it's got to be interesting. I don't really care what industry I've been in, 1,000, Lenny and I have been in 10,000 industries. It's absolutely, I don't have a passion about an industry. I don't have a passion about making red cups, even though this is a fabulous business and a great brand. It doesn't do anything for me. I want to make some money and have freedom. That's what I care about. But one of the things I didn't suggest, I'm going to tell you something that every old person tells you. For the first 30 or 40 years of my life, I worked 7 days a week. And I know you don't believe any of that, but I'm telling you it's factual.
Hard to believe, somebody would work 7 days a week.
All right, because that's all I knew of how to do things. I went to college, I went to graduate school. Yes, I went to Harvard, but I was able to get through Harvard because I was in a family business, and the kitchen table was my education. So that's pretty simple to understand. I wasn't a student. God knows I wasn't. I did real well, but I was never a student. So I only knew, the only way I knew to win was to outwork people. I know you've been told that, but I can tell you it's the only way I was able to succeed. 7 days a week. And your life, you pay for it. Don't, it's not free to work 7 days a week. And I know you guys think I really need 5. I don't. I still have meetings now, it's on Sunday mornings, but I only work 3 or 4 hours on Sunday, so it's a throw. Because I have bagels with it, so it's all right.
Yes? Okay. Avis, thank you so much. Okay, decision time, games. Okay, so get your focus.
Thanks,
Hey, thank you, buddy. Okay, decision time. What do we want to do for the last hour or so? Okay, I'm going to hand out the negotiation. That's going to be done after class, right? You have, just stay there just for a second, okay? Let me just, okay? Somebody has to represent Sally Soprano, the agent for Sally Soprano. Somebody has to